So when I first heard about The Princess on Hulu, I was very skeptical. Then I watched the trailer. I was like, hello, this looks like a lot of fun. Well, the movie has now arrived, but does it live up to the trailer? When a strong-willed princess refuses to wed a cruel sociopath, she is kidnapped and locked in a remote tower of her father's castle. With her vindictive suitor intent on taking her father's throne, the princess must save the kingdom. Joey King stars as the princess, who is supposed to be marrying Dominic Cooper's Julius. When she doesn't go through with the wedding, he's all butthurt, and then he takes over the castle in a show of force. And he's also crazed on making her his bride so that he can rightfully become king. Right off the bat, our characters have very little development. We get some sprinkled about on the princess as we watch her train to fight, and we also see small conversations between her and her mom, the queen. Now we do get to see how her dad, the king, views her pursuits too, and we can tell that she's headstrong and stubborn, and that's pretty much all we need to know about her for this story. Now Julius is a stranger to us. Sure, we see he's hell-bent on becoming a king at any cost, but outside of that, he's a bad guy with bad intentions, and that is the extent of his depth. Now, Julius has a sidekick who honestly I thought was his sister. Ooh. But Mora is played by Olga Kurylenko, and while she is deadly with her whip, we know nothing about her either. Now, the princess's trainer, Lynn, is a great fighter, but she too is a stranger. Are you seeing a pattern here? Nobody has any type of depth to them so that we can't truly get concerned about any of their arcs. Now, we can become mildly invested because we have a person who's wrongfully being held captive by a bad guy. But outside of that primitive plot, there's no other reason to even care about the players. Now, aside from the shallowly created characters, the action in this is outstanding. This is 94 minutes with the majority of it filled with crazy hand-to-hand battles involving swords, pointy helmets, whips, chains, and crossbows. Now, while some of the scenes do employ quick cuts that obscure some of the action, many are continuous takes with the camera put right into the center of a battle. It's spinning around and pushing in and out from our characters as they bounce off each other and their surroundings. The violence is also pretty intense, as this doesn't shy away from showing some crazy kills. Now, we may see a sword go up through somebody's chin and then pop out the top of their skull, or maybe they'll become a human candle. But because these weapons are pretty gnarly, the harm that they inflict is just as gnarly, with some fairly gruesome and creative ways to die. Now, the action isn't only limited to fighting. Because a lot of this movie is a chase to just capture or maybe find the princess, and it pretty much takes place in a castle tower, there are a lot of stunts that get showcased as characters just launch themselves from one side of the tower to another. And now they're all hoping that they're going to latch onto something before plummeting to the ground, which is really far below. Within some of the action, though, as fun as a lot of it is, there is some absurdity mixed in that led to what I think are unintentionally funny sequences. Now, a character was chasing after the princess as they were circling down the tower, and this dude, he does a cartwheel type of parkour jump just to go down 3 small steps. It's completely unnecessary, and it's even dumb, but it made me laugh at the ridiculousness. There's also a time when the princess enters a room that is filled with people who are searching for her. Now, she's dressed in this tattered white gown that does have a bit of a flowiness to it. Now, as she tries to stealthily move from a wall to behind a chair that's out in the room, she does this somersault maneuver, which, first off, it is unnecessary. But then, if we care about reality at all, this would draw all sorts of attention because of just how her dress moved. She would have been seen by several people in their peripheral vision. But for plot protection, she goes unnoticed. There's a surprising lack of dialogue in this, and when we do get speaking parts, it's weak and it's basic. Now, Julius will give us villain expositions laying out his plans, and I guess they're needed because we can't tell that he's trying to overtake the kingdom. What? It's pretty obvious, but that dialogue is included. Now, every bit of this film is obvious, but really, I think you watch this for the exciting action. Joey King pulls off a lot of the moves really convincingly. At least when she's not doing unnecessary somersaults. But seriously though, the fights are immersive and they're very engaging. The rest of the story is uninteresting and unmotivating. But if you go in with the right perspective of what this actually is, then I think you can have a bit of fun with it. So overall, the princess thrives when the action sequences are happening, which luckily there are a plethora to support the 90-minute runtime. The characters are poorly defined, simply crafted, with dialogue that is cringy and uninspiring. Now, I had a lot of fun with the way the camera was immersed in so much of the fighting, creating a good level of excitement that held my attention. The contained setting also helps to increase the adventure, creating a small bit of peril that our hero has to face. But because everything outside of the action is uninspiring, the best way to watch this is with your brain turned off to let the ridiculous fight sequences just completely envelop you. There's no sex or nudity, some profanity, and a ton of violence. I give The Princess 2 out of 5 couches. What's an action movie that you've enjoyed recently? Let me know in the comments below. If you enjoyed this review, please give it a like. Also, don't forget to share and subscribe. I'm Chris. This is Movies and Munchies. Thanks for couching with me.